Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of me and Liam shouting into the void, almost quite literally every week. This is our rewatch of New Who, the Doctor Who series that started from 2005. I imagine we'll touch on some classic Who as we get more into the New Who stuff, because more stuff comes back as it does.
Yes.
Currently, we're on episode 4, Aliens of London. The Doctor and Rose return to London in what they think has only been 12 hours. But surprise, surprise, it's actually been a full year. So they've got that to deal with alongside a seemingly quite realistic alien crash that's just destroyed the Big Ben. And they've basically got to figure out what's going on. It's a two-parter, so we're not going to get all the answers in this episode. But we're only going to do part 1. We'll do part 2 next week, just so that we could look at this episode by itself rather than the whole. So I guess, what was your opinions on it then, really, overall?
I mentioned it last week. I don't know if it was during the actual thing or afterwards. But when I normally rewatch, I tend to skip this story, or I'll watch part 2 because I was like, yeah, I don't know. But I enjoyed this a lot more than I expected to, and it's still my least favorite so far. But it was a lot more enjoyable than I remembered it being. I thought it was like really, really slow. That's how I remembered it, but I didn't really find that this time. At points I did, but overall, yeah, good fun. Some things I really enjoy, but that's kind of Doctor Who. So yeah, it was better than I thought it was in my memory. So that's a positive.
Yeah, I think I've always enjoyed this one, mainly because, like, I know they're a big meme, but the Slovene have like kind of become one of my favorite villains from Doctor Who, unintentionally. It's just they have now, and so I like that this is their introduction. I think it's a good setup for the whole two-parter, and it's got some interesting bits that I'll touch on. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I think it's probably one of my favorite episodes we've watched so far. I think.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because I prefer the episodes set in modern time compared to different. I don't know. I guess we'll
Yeah.
explore that as we do more things, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed it overall. There are some issues which I'll touch on.
Yeah.
But I did struggle to kind of pick some negatives for this.
Yeah, I did have I had one glaring one I despise, but
Hmm.
apart from that, I did really have to try. And also, it's part 1 of the 2 parts. I can't hold anything against it just yet. I think
Yeah.
the second part will often, I think, improve or ruin a part 1. So watch this space.
Yeah, normally when it comes to Doctor Who two-parters, it always seems to be part 1 that seems to be the better one, and then part 2 always seems to drop off.
This
I
is the
know.
thing. This is why I always had a weird relationship with this one. So this is like one of the few occurrences that I can really think of, and I always prefer part 2.
Yeah, I
But
think.
again, watch that next week now when I actually rewatch it. I'm like, eh.
Yeah, well, I think Series 1 does a good job with their two-parters that both tend to be on equal footing. But as we go through New Who, I do think that part 2s tend to get less attention, I think, because basically they know if you watch part 1, you're going to watch part 2. So they might not have to put as much effort into it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess we'll start with the positives. So what was your top best moment?
Exploring the consequences of time travel through Rose. I thought that was a really unique, cool idea for them to finally actually explore that, because that's obviously something the classic series never really touched and delved into. They were going to, but then they got cancelled, so they couldn't quite. So yeah, I enjoyed that. The fact that Rose was gone for a year. It provided a lot of tension for the start. Even before the actual core mystery of the story got started, we had some drama going on with that. And I do think like the first 10 minutes or so, I don't think I can fault in the slightest of this episode. I was like, wow, this is really, really good stuff. And yeah, I think the performances from everyone were really good through that. The fact that, Mickey was kind of somewhat framed for murder in a way. Everyone kind of turned on him, and it was just a really dark idea. I liked them exploring that. I thought it shows that there was consequences to Rose just rushing off at the end of episode 1. You can be like, oh, that's such a bitchy thing to do. But at least like the chickens still came home to roost. So I thought it was a very Doctor Who idea any other show can't really do. So I love that they could explore quite an interesting topic like that.
See, I agree that it's good that they can do it, but the year delay is on my worst list.
Ooh.
Only because I feel that outside of the first sort of 10, 15 minutes, it doesn't get mentioned again. You know, it's completely forgotten about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of why Jackie calls the police on the Doctor, but I think that's more a case of she sees the TARDIS and freaks out rather than my daughter might be in danger.
Yeah. I think this is another theme that comes back in part 2 a bit, from what I remember.
Yeah, it does. It does, because especially towards the end of part 2, I think it does bear it bears on the how they decide to end the episode and end the arc. But yeah, for me, it just sort of was there right at the start and then stopped. You know, as soon as the alien crashed, it sort of went, "Oh right,
Yeah.
there's aliens now. We've got to
I
go
guess
and
that's
do
why I
that."
really enjoyed the first 10 minutes, because that's the 10 minutes that actually explored the idea.
Yeah, and I mean, I like it, and I think while we'll stick on this bit because I want to speak about the one line that's aged very poorly in this whole episode is after Rose and the Doctor have had the reuniting with Jackie, which, you know, the Doctor doesn't get arrested for kidnapping either, by the way. He does. There's a police officer there while Jackie spews at him, but that's it. Nothing else happens. The Doctor gets slapped, and then they're on the rooftop. And Rose just goes, "You're so gay." And I was like, I know, I know that was what kids would say at the time,
Yeah.
and I can't fault it because it is 2000. Sorry, it is 2006 lingo. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it feels very weird listening to it now. It's only for
It
like
did.
2 seconds.
It stood out like a sore thumb, for sure.
Yeah, especially because, you know, Russell T Davies is a, you know, he's a gay man himself. So I guess I don't feel too bad that it's coming from his show. Because of, you know, he would have had to have greenlit it, and he would have known, you know, reading the writer's tale, he would have known all about
Yeah.
the impact it would
He
have.
wrote this one, didn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that stuck out for a little bit for me. But yeah, and also with the whole year thing, it then takes the whole of the Doctor Who universe out of sync with our universe, which when I was younger didn't bother me too much because I didn't realize more than anything. But now that I go back and rewatch it, I'm like, oh yeah. And then when 2000 series 2's on, it's 2006. I'm like, oh no, it's 2007. And you've got add on and add on until.
Yeah, that's interesting because it used to bother me when it first aired. And now I'm like, yeah.
See, I just didn't pay attention. But I guess that's what they're relying on, is that kids won't think about that.
Yeah.
So it's a good concept that I like, but I don't like that it's forgotten about, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially for the rest of the series, it's definitely forgotten about. It's never mentioned again that she was gone for a year.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, anyway, back to the best bits. My first one is the Slovene.
Nice.
I know they don't get much of a bearing in this, especially their whole alien form. We see it right at the end. But just the fact that they can make farting so threatening, I think, was a very sort of unique concept that does, you know, if you're a child, you're like, haha, it's funny. But then you see them take off their skin and skin another human, and you're like, oh, okay.
We'll talk about farting.
Yes, and even that, I like the whole idea that they've just condensed themselves into these human skin suits with zips on their neck, on their head.
Can you imagine if it was on their neck?
Oh, it's worse. And then
why are
there's
all
the
these politicians wearing scarves?
I know. There's one right at the end when you can actually just see that they've stuck a zip on his head because he's got no hair, and it's like, oh, that's a problem. But yeah, I like their design. I like the reveal of those aliens. I like that. Basically, I like the plot that they faked their crash, this alien crash, to you know, to basically take over. But that's part of my second best bit, so I'll leave that for now.
Ooh, okay.
Your thoughts on, I guess, the Slovene?
Yes, because they were actually one of my positives as well, to an extent. I did put in brackets the Slovene to an extent.
Yeah,
so I'll talk about that later. But yeah, I loved. There's a real sinister side to them And when they showcase that, I think they really do shine. Like Joseph Green, I think is like the name of like the main Celine guy in this one. There's just moments when like his face just drops, you know, and when they all start laughing initially, before it gets a bit later on. Like, whoa. At first, I'm like, oh god, you guys are kind of really sinister and evil. I liked that. The idea of them faking the crash, I love that idea. The fact that they sent it off and how no one saw it is interesting when it first took off, but it's a little thing. And the fact that they could manipulate the government, the idea behind the skin suits, I think, is really dark. You know, you can overlook like, well, how do they have the eyes and the teeth and everything? Like, it's just it's a really cool concept. That yeah, when they're at their best, I think the Celine are really sinister and creepy, and I like the design as well. Clearly, they were confident in the design because all the merchandise when it first started coming out was like Celine radios and Celine costumes and everything. So yeah, I think they're really cool. Even them blinking sideways, I think it's a really nice touch. So yeah, I think they're underappreciated as a villain when they're sinister. They also do lean more into the light-hearted side of them later years because they become they're in the Sojourn Adventures like every other episode. And I think they work very well there. Arguably better in Sojourn Adventures than in Doctor Who, but they can be quite sinister, and I do appreciate that about them. So yeah, as villains, I do think they deserve more credit than they get.
Yeah, I think even when I was a child, you know, just the thought that any fat person could be an alien is also what scares children, I think.
That's a good message to have.
I know, well that's it. And then obviously in the Sarah Jane they make it so that thin people could also be aliens, and I guess that slightly might take away from it, but the fact that there's that thing there, it could be an argument that they were trying to get kids to eat healthy so that they wouldn't be big and they wouldn't be Slovene. I don't know.
They wouldn't be accused of being Slovene by kids in the playground.
But yeah, so I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the Slovene. They can be quite sinister at times, especially I think it is when they're trying to kill the general guy, and
yes,
the guy's like, "Oh, I'll declare martial law," and the main Slovene's face just sort of drops and goes, "Don't think you will, mate." And then they kill him and skin him.
Yeah, he just stands there watching him all unzip. Like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, he's a general and he just stands there and watches.
Shoot them.
Yeah, so I mean, really enjoyed the Celine. It kind of leads me on to my second best bit, which is the alien crash and the pig pilot. But for me, I thought it was a unique concept, and the fact that when the doctor says it's kind of like mermaids, where it's a trick, and the fact that they've sort of realized it too late, I think really adds to it, and it just shows that this is what might happen if a spaceship actually did crash in modern day. I know they kind of forget it moving forwards in New Who with all the alien things. They kind of just sort of skip over the fact that there's been other ones. I think we'll get to the bit with the cracks, whether we agree that it reset everything or whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed the setup. Basically, it's the whole setup of the Slovene and the fake pig pilot and the spaceship. Even the spaceship design, I liked. It looks like it's an alien spaceship.
Yeah.
And the CGI can be a little bit dodgy, but when it crashes into Big Ben, they did that with all practical effects, and you can really see that pays off, and it gives the impression it should give.
It does annoy me that they flipped the image when it crashes into that, though, so the face is the wrong way around. But that was the director's choice. That was my fun fact. So you wanted it to hit Big Ben the other way around.
Yeah.
So they flipped the image. That means the clock face is wrong, but still.
Smart. Well, that's probably what they decided literally last minute. Went, do it the other way. Yeah, so what was your second best bit?
Well, that was the Slovene. So
yeah.
We talked about that. But my third bit was the build-up of the mystery for like the first few bits of the episode, showing the real-world impact of like first contact, particularly like the Doctor's enjoyment of seeing it happen and being like, well, I can't really interfere. So like seeing Blue Peter making the cake, because that's absolutely something that I think they would do.
Yeah.
Everyone just getting drunk and making signs like welcome home ET, all of that stuff. I liked them because for so much of classic Who and everything, it was all like invasions with units. They kind of kept it hush hush and the public didn't know that aliens were invading all the time. So it was nice to kind of see it actually happen in the public eye. You see all these news broadcasters all around the world. Andrew Marr cameoing as himself, which I forgot happened. Everything with that I thought was a really, again, a very Doctor Who-y thing that only they can do to blur the lines between the real world and the Doctor Who world. So they can like pick and choose what presenters to use and how it impacts the world. But they were going to actually say Tony Blair's Prime Minister and kill him off. But the lookalike they hired, they weren't impressed with him when he turned up. So they just changed the lines and everything to just make it a bit more generic.
I did notice when Harriet Jones went, she's hardly one of the babes, and that's a reference to Blair's babes.
That's the only line that stayed in, kind of referencing it was supposed to be Tony Blair. So yeah, I just liked the idea of aliens affecting the real world and exploring that impact on the human race.
Yeah, and I put a few bits on that as well. Is the Doctor's forced to watch it on TV, and at the same time, life is still going on. I don't know whether Jackie's invited her friends around because Rose is back, because the aliens are invading, or because she just wanted people around. It's not really clear, but she's clearly like, oh, we've got these friends around. Guess who's asked me out on the date? She's there to keep life normal. When there's an alien has just been fished out from a crashed spaceship in the Thames, and she's chatting about who she's going to see. But so I enjoyed that he was sort of forced to watch it on TV, and he had to fight with the child to get the right TV on. And a very young Matt Baker from the One Show, or no, he's not on the One Show anymore. But I never knew he was on Blue Peter because I didn't used to watch it. But
I didn't either.
Seeing that, I was like, oh. But yes, so, I mean, sticking with that, also with the pig pilot and the setup, I like that they retroactively added Tosh into that scene.
Yes,
I think it because obviously they're the same actress, and everyone at the same time was saying, "Oh, is it?" I think it might have been a last minute decision to do it because it's literally in her last episode in Torchwood. They're like, "Oh, remember when I had to go and do that pig crash?"
Yeah, I covered for you because you were hungover.
Yeah, so I like that they did that in. And I mean, it does technically fit because you get the impression that she might know more than she lets on, because she's like, oh, there's all this alien tech in the brain, and what's this and what's that. So you get the kind of idea that she's, if not in on it, then quite smart. But then you never see her again in the episode. But what can you do?
No, he just leaves.
But yeah, so I guess my third best is the cliffhanger itself, I guess, that leads into episode 2. I think it sets everyone up nicely for oh my god, how are they going to get out of this? And we'll discuss how they get out of it in the next episode, because I think I have concerns about maybe one or two. But
or you can watch the immediate next time trailer that shows.
That was the other thing. That was the other thing I put right at the end of my notes is next time spoils the cliffhanger, which they cotton on to that eventually, and they start putting the next time at the end of the credits.
Yeah, I think this is the only time they ever did it because they got so many complaints.
Yeah, so if you ignore the next time, the cliffhanger was pretty good. Jackie's in danger. The Doctor's in danger. He's literally being electrocuted. And then even Rose is in danger, and she's watching a man be killed.
Yes.
So, the cliffhanger for me is probably one of the... the ending is the best bit.
When it ends. But, I do love a good cliffhanger.
Yeah, and I think this was one of the ones where I was like, oh, I'm going to wait and watch the next episode. I'm not going to watch it now. I'm going to make myself wait. But yeah, so, I mean, are there any other sort of positive moments that you wanted to tack on?
I would definitely agree about the cliffhanger for the most part. I love cliffhangers. I think they're great. One of the reasons why I think Series 9 is an underrated gem, and you'll suck for hating it because there's so many two-parters. But I like how they can keep you hooked on, and the fact that Rusty Davies wanted to keep at least some two-parters in the series when he brought it back, because the Doctor Who cliffhanger is such, for better or worse, such kind of an iconic part of the show. So it's nice to see them hold on to that as well.
Yeah, I think that this series especially...
Harriet Jones. I like Harriet Jones. It's cool to be introduced to her.
Well, with Harriet Jones, we'll go on to my worst.
Ooh.
I mentioned the year delay, so that was my first worst. My second one is Harriet Jones in this one episode, just in this one episode. I just don't like her. I realised that, and I know she's a fan. I like her in other episodes. I like her in part 2, I think. I like her in Christmas Invasion.
I do think some of her acting in it was a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, because she's not an inexperienced actor by
No, she's great.
miles. But yeah, I don't. Literally, what I've put is Harriet Jones. Although I do love the fact that she does go Harriet Jones, let me Friday North every single time. I like that.
Yeah.
But what one of the Slovene said is get some perspective. What mindset has she got that she thinks that cottage hospitals are what needs to be top of the agenda right now?
Yeah, that is true.
And that kind of annoyed me. And I guess her just that she sort of I feel that she forcefully inserts herself into the situation, and I feel that the writers forcefully insert herself into the situation, because she doesn't really add too much in this episode, I don't think, other than meeting with Rose at the end and sort of telling her. But even so, I don't think that would have changed much because they were still with the security guard when the Slovene attacked. So
yeah.
But yeah, I know that might be a tiny bit controversial, but just in this one episode, she's not my favorite.
Yeah, just like the video, please.
Yeah. So yeah, what was your first worst then? I guess.
Just, I think it was a bit slow for me near the middle. For the first time since we started doing this, I had to rewind a scene. I was like, oh, I didn't pay attention to that. But I like write the plot out as it's happening, so I can like keep referring back to stuff. There's a whole scene of the Dr. Rose and Mickey chatting in TARDIS, and I was like, oh, hang on, I didn't listen to what they just said. I zoned out a bit, lost a bit of interest, so I had to rewind it and stuff. That was like the only time it really happened, but I do think there are some slowish moments near the middle for me. Not too bad. But yeah, I need to come up with a few negatives. So
No, I do agree. And I've put in my notes that there is some padding, or I feel there's some padding. There's a scene where Harriet Jones is just flicking through the emergency protocols, which doesn't come back, at least in this episode.
Yeah.
It doesn't come back, so I don't think it was necessary to have that in. There's also a scene with just the Doctor flying to TARDIS, which I don't mind, but at the same time, why are we seeing this in episode 4? Like,
yeah,
that feels to me like we've got 2 minutes to fill. Let's just get Chris Preston back in the TARDIS set and
I thought that's what it was.
But, I mean, if that's the case, fine. But yeah, scenes like that, and and Mickey sort of, I don't know, the introduction of Mickey in this episode is a weird one as well, because he's not there straight away. He only goes when he sees the Doctor walking to the TARDIS.
Yeah.
But then later in the episode, he's like, everywhere I go, I look for the box. So how did he not see that to start with and immediately go over? Because clearly he lives on the tower block opposite, doesn't he? So I don't know, but yeah, there's some scenes that feel like they're just a bit of padding.
Yeah, poor Mickey. Like when he first comes into the flat, like after the crash has happened and everything, like no, Rose hasn't been to see him.
I know,
oh my
I know,
God.
I know. And then she's like, "Was there anyone else?" And I'm like, "Are you being serious?"
I know.
But all right, hang on. Right, because I'll go on to this now because my third worst is Rose, but it's more nitpicky than like, "Oh, she's terrible."
Here we go.
Because
nice little preview last week.
But what got me for Rose this one is her reaction to Harriet Jones at the end. Like when Harriet Jones is trying to tell her about the aliens and Harriet Jones visibly like upset, Rose is just like looking at her with disgust, and I'm like, what? Why you have no like compassion for anyone other than yourself? Like you didn't see Mickey, you didn't really care about Mickey's feelings. You only cared if he was seeing someone else. And then you were so quick to dismiss Harriet when she was clearly visibly upset. I was like, oh, but I don't know. I don't know why they flip flop with Rose so much in these first 4 episodes. I mean, I might be the only one that thinks it.
Yeah,
because
I think this is the first one they shot as well. This was the first story they shot. So I don't know if they change their acting choices as it goes on or something. I don't know.
Maybe because obviously, they do film disjointed in Doctor Who. They never film obviously straight through.
Yeah, I love that the first scenes Chris Eccleston ever shot was him in the space pig.
Good. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that Rose lacks some compassion in this episode. I think it might flip flop again next episode. I can't remember. But yeah,
Yeah,
because she clearly doesn't care for Mickey. She only really cares. Well, she doesn't really care that much about how her mum feels. You know, even when like her mum's like, "Where have you been?" She's sort of like, "Oh, well, just trying to brush it off," not thinking that it's been a whole year since
yeah.
they've seen him. But I don't know. That's just me again. I seem to have a vendetta for Rose, but I promise it's not on purpose.
Not yet.
No, no. So what was your, I guess, second and third worst?
Yes. This first one, when I write out my positives and negatives, I do like a little plus sign instead of bullet points for the positives, and I do a minus negative sign for the negatives. This one I've done a squiggly line because I was like, how do I feel? And it's the space pig.
Ah, mm-hmm.
Um, I like the idea of the space pig. I think the costume and everything looks fantastic. It loses me when it comes back to life. That's when it's running down the corridor doing that. I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. I burst out laughing. I was like, this is very silly. But I like the idea that Celine kind of hijacked this poor bloody pig and kind of forced it to crash. And if it had just stayed dead then, I think it would have worked a lot better for me. It's just when it comes back just to get shot anyway, it doesn't necessarily add anything because we already know what the Celine did to it. I just found that whole sequence a bit like that. And yeah, but again, I like the idea of it and I like it up until when it comes back to life. So I kind of, it's on both lists really. And then my biggest one, I just wrote the farting, my God, the farting. It's just like, I like the scene when they're sinister. I think that's when they're at their best. I just don't like it. I didn't like it when it first aired. I don't like it now. I just think it takes away the threat for me personally. And I like the cliffhanger. I like Joseph Green laughing away. But when the Celine goes, wah, 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 I'm like, no, why did you do this? It just, that I think is why the Celine aren't like God tier villains. Yeah, just the actors, they have fun with it. You can tell. I think they sell it. I just don't like it myself. Like, I'm shaking my booty. Like,
Yes,
I don't need. I don't think there needed to necessarily be consequences to them getting into the skin suits. I get it, but maybe just using fat people was enough, and that's like they can get away with it. But yeah, it just, yeah, I rolled my eyes every time it happened.
I think that's an example of we need to make this something for the kids, I guess. Like, you know, it
Yeah.
needs to have something that the kids will go ha 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 ha.
Yeah, you can't be a Celine in the playground unless you can make a noise to go with it.
Yeah,
So you have to fart.
exactly. Yeah, so I can kind of agree, and I think it's done less in the start where like he's like, oh, I'm just nervous, but then
Yeah.
when they like reveal themselves to the general, that's when it gets a bit comical.
Yeah, I think they just overdo it. I think it just happens a bit too often. I wouldn't mind it as much if it's just like every now and again. But.
Yeah, because like with the amount they do it in that scene, it's then like why aren't they doing it all the time?
Yeah.
But yeah, I can kind of agree with that. And then with my point on the pig pilot is that I think it's in there maybe for padding, but also to show, I guess, the compassion of the doctor, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because, you know, he comes out and is like, why the hell did you just shoot him? It was a scared animal, you absolute monster. And I'm like, I kind of signed with the army guy. If that thing was running at me and I had a gun, I probably would have shot it as well.
Yeah.
But
it's quite the sight to behold, yeah.
But that and the fact, I think in the lead up to that as well, is when the doctor sort of just takes control of the army there and then, like straight away he knows what to say. And
Yeah.
that I guess an additional positive for me, that scene where he steps out of the cupboard and the army people are all just sort of there and they sort of look up.
Yeah.
And then it takes a second for them to be like, oh, hang on a minute, he's not supposed to be. I think that's a really underrated scene in the whole of series 1.
Yeah, like 9 is actually really funny. Yeah, so I enjoyed that. And I like that Unit got a bit of a reference as well. I forgot that they mentioned Unit in this one. And like Mickey had been researching him. He's like, you used to work for them.
Yeah. Well, Well, that's it. I think this is where they start getting more comfortable with Doctor Who and with sort of referencing older things. I think with Unit, they throw in the fact that he's 900 years old,
Mm.
and so it adds to that depth of Who, which most kids watching this won't have known, and they
Yeah,
could have gone off and done it. And then Unit, I know, especially plays a bigger part in part two with the way that it gets resolved. The kids could then go and do the way it got resolved online. And I
yeah.
know, I remember I'll talk about it next week, but there was plenty of times in school where I would go to that website and show off.
Buffalo, Buffalo,
Yeah, yeah.
Buffalo. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I agree with the Slovene-fying. I did put that. Even in quotes, I put shaking my booty because that's a lot. But you can't disagree that it's not a line that's stuck with you ever since you've watched this episode.
Exactly, yeah. Like it's
So,
the ultimate meme.
yeah,
Memes are memes for a reason and not why they're not taken seriously.
yeah, exactly. What else have I got then? Because obviously, wow, have you got any other negative sort of points to add on, or?
Not really. I will admit I did kind of struggle to come up with some.
Yeah, I think for myself, I think we've covered most of it. I did put threatening farts. But one thing I did like, and again, we're going to touch on it now. Murray Gold's music. The point I've picked out is right at the start when the Doctor starts to realize it's been 12 months, not 12 hours.
Mm.
The music is sort of nice and happy, and oh, we're back. And then as soon as he sees that poster, it just distorts into this horrible like whine of oh shit, something's gone terribly wrong, and I really like that.
Yeah, I like that bit.
And then obviously the music when the ship crashes as well is really good as well, with the sort of the high paced thumping sound. But yeah, I think that's sort of it really. Yeah, Jackie seeing the TARDIS arrive, and she sort of
How'd she do that then?
yeah, she sort of came into the TARDIS as the first time that she's in there. I don't think she steps in until the end of the series now. I think that's the next time.
Yeah, it must be.
So yeah, I enjoyed that. And then another thing is that Rose, in that moment, chooses life with the Doctor rather than life at home, because her mum runs off, and rather than go and comfort her mum, she's like, "Oh, I'll be there in a minute," and she goes back into the TARDIS.
Yeah.
I think that's quite symbolic in what she's chosen.
Mm.
And then I guess the other thing is maybe the relationship between Mickey and the Doctor, because although basically he framed him for murder, like I think there's that kind of recognition from the Doctor that Mickey is slightly smart and that he's not just an idiot that the Nine always puts him down to be. And you can see it twice with I can't remember what Mickey says, but the Doctor's like, "Yeah, maybe," or something like that. And he
Yeah, it
basically
was if they're invading, it's odd that they kind of made such a spectacle of him, put the whole world on red alert. And he was like, "Oh yeah, good point."
And then at the same time, like 2 minutes later, Mickey's like, "Oh, can you get the sports?" And the Doctor's like, "Yeah, I can get the football." So I like that, and I think that sets up for a bit more of this in Boomtown later on, and their relationship even in part 2, where the Doctor trusts Mickey with quite a big thing.
Yeah.
So I think it shows that although Nine might come off as a bit harsh towards Mickey or Ricky, then I think he recognizes that Mickey's actually quite an intelligent man.
Yeah, I think that might be to an extent why he maybe takes him a cab a bit.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. It's probably I mean, it's not that Nine has much to worry about, because Rose isn't going to be like, "Oh yeah, Mickey is smart, I'm going to stay here." But yeah, maybe it's a little bit. I've forgotten the word, but yeah, he's sort of protecting himself. Insecurity. That's it.
Yes.
Which is fair, because again, this is a Doctor that's just come off of destroying millions of people, and he hasn't been with anyone for a while. But yeah, I think that was sort of it for my notes. Was there anything you wanted to add?
I don't think so. That's kind of everything I want to say.
Nice. Well, obviously next week is World War III, which is the conclusion of this two-parter.
Two-parter.
And then, yeah, I think from what I can remember, I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
Clearly,
I
you
end up
did. If
preferring
you,
part two, but who knows at this point.
yeah. So I guess to sort of finish off, what would you rate Aliens of London at 10?
I would give it a 6.5.
Why the 0.5?
So I was looking back, I was like, I did enjoy it quite a bit. And I gave Rose a 7.5. And I was like, I do enjoy Rose a lot more.
Mm.
So kind of, I don't think I just like 0.5 more ever. So yeah, I kind of based it on that. 6.5, 65%, all right.
Yeah, fair enough. I think and I'm going to struggle to remember what I rated the previous episodes. I'll probably give this an 8. I think that's what I gave
All right.
Rose.
Yeah.
So I consider these two sort of on par. I think they're better than definitely 2 and 3.
Mhm.
Just because, again, I think I prefer modern day Earth to future and past. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the villain. I enjoyed the setup. I enjoyed the twist that it's been a year, even if it doesn't pay off as much.
Mhm.
So yeah, a strong 8, I think,
Nice.
which I'm really setting series 1 up to be like the high mark of what we're gonna, what I'm gonna look
Yeah,
at.
I'm kind of
So,
nervous about rating all these because I'm like, I'm going to contradict myself later on down the line.
yeah, because when we get to
Yeah.
series 2, there are going to be some episodes that are quite far down.
Yeah, I'm making notes of all like the scores so I can like do an average at the end of
Mm.
each series, and then we'll see how it all ranks.
Yeah, I'll probably go back through mine and make notes. But we'll see. Yeah. So if you did stick around to the end of this, which is probably a good old 39 minutes again, then do leave a comment saying if you agree or disagree. Do you like the Slovene? Do you think they should never be seen in Doctor Who again? Which they haven't, to be fair, since 2011, I don't think. Because they were in David Tennant's last episode, weren't they, in the bar with Jack
Yeah.
in the
Were
background?
they in the Trap Street in Faith the Raven? I can't remember.
Oh, maybe. Oh, I can't remember, but maybe we'll get to
Find
that.
out in 2 years when we tackle
Yeah,
Face the Raven.
exactly. But yeah, so let us know what your thoughts are on this episode. Leave a like if you want. I will link below both of our social medias as well as Liam's YouTube channel where he posts consistently more content, basically every day, unless things get copyright struck. So if you're looking for One Division, you might get it. You might.
And you might see 2 familiar faces.
Wonder and Vision. But yeah, so
Yes.
if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe if you like. If not, yeah, I can't make you do whatever you want. But yeah, we will be back next week, hopefully.
Yeah.
See you later.
Bye.
Go.
I'm shaking my booty.